The 50-year-old black mail-order bride stepped off the dusty stagecoach, whispering, "I'm too old for this," when the weathered cow in the nearby pen seemed to lift her head and reply with knowing eyes, "I'm perfect." The frontier town's cruel whispers follow the aging woman like vultures, too dark, too old, too proud for their liking. They expect her to wither under their scorn, another broken dream buried in prairie dust. But the gentle giant cowboy who sent for her sees something different, something that threatens everything this rigid community believes about worth and age. Hidden beneath her quiet dignity lies a gift that could either save this dying ranch or destroy the fragile bond between two unlikely hearts. Will she risk revealing her dangerous secret, or let both their dreams crumble into nothing? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The stagecoach wheels ground to a halt in the dusty main street of Copper Ridge, Montana Territory. Adelaide Mosley stepped down into the harsh afternoon sun, her dark skin glistening with perspiration and travel dust. At 50 years old, she carried herself with dignity despite the weight of uncertainty pressing against her chest. Whispers started immediately. Women clutched their shawls tighter and exchanged meaningful glances. Men paused their work to stare with undisguised judgment. Adelaide had expected this reaction, but feeling it cut deeper than she imagined. A tall man with kind eyes and weathered hands approached through the gathering crowd. Silas Cooper removed his hat respectfully. His gentle demeanor stood in stark contrast to the hostile faces surrounding them. The town's matriarch, Constance Harwick, emerged from the general store like a predator sensing weakness. Her silver hair was pulled into a severe bun, and her lips pursed with disapproval. She surveyed Adelaide from head to toe with the calculating gaze of someone who had appointed herself guardian of social order. Adelaide felt every eye boring into her. These people had made their verdict before she spoke a single word. Too old, too different, too bold for their narrow expectations. Silas guided her toward his wagon while the crowd continued their cruel assessment. His ranch lay 3 miles outside town, a refuge from the immediate judgment but not from its lingering effects. Adelaide climbed onto the wooden seat beside him, acutely aware that her future depended entirely on this stranger's kindness. The ride passed in uncomfortable silence. Silas seemed genuinely decent, but Adelaide had learned that decent men could still bend under community pressure. Her savings had been spent on the journey west. There was no backup plan, no family to return to, no safety net if this arrangement failed. The Cooper Ranch appeared modest but well-maintained. Silas helped her down from the wagon and carried her single trunk toward the small wooden house. Adelaide noticed the struggling livestock immediately. Several cattle looked thin and sickly. The horses seemed restless and agitated. Even to her untrained eye, something was clearly wrong. That evening, Silas explained his situation over a simple dinner. His first wife had died in childbirth 2 years prior. He needed a companion, not a young bride who might suffer the same fate. He had specifically requested someone with life experience and wisdom. The townspeople thought him foolish for choosing an older woman, especially one of Adelaide's background. Adelaide appreciated his honesty, but doubt gnawed at her confidence. Perhaps everyone was right. Perhaps she was too old to start over, too different to find acceptance, too hopeful about her prospects in this unforgiving landscape. After Silas retired, Adelaide stepped onto the front porch. The night air carried the sounds of distressed animals. She walked toward the barn, drawn by an inexplicable urge to investigate. The moonlight revealed a sorry collection of livestock, but one figure caught her attention. An old dairy cow stood apart from the others in a small fenced area. The animal's ribs showed through her patchy coat, and her udder hung empty and unused. Adelaide approached the fence slowly. The cow lifted her head and fixed Adelaide with surprisingly intelligent eyes. Adelaide found herself speaking aloud to the empty night. The weight of the day's humiliation and uncertainty poured out of her. She confessed her fears about being too old, too unwanted, too foolish for believing she could find happiness in this harsh place. The cow stepped closer to the fence. She nudged Adelaide's outstretched hand with her warm muzzle, then let out a soft, almost conversational low. The sound seemed to carry meaning, as if the animal was responding directly to Adelaide's concerns with gentle reassurance. Something stirred deep in Adelaide's memory. As a child in Boston, she had possessed an unusual connection with animals. Her father, a respected scientist, had encouraged her natural ability to understand their behavior and needs. But years of rejection and hardship had forced her to suppress that gift, to focus on survival rather than intuition. Standing in the Montana moonlight beside this rejected cow, Adelaide felt that dormant ability awakening. The animal's body language spoke volumes about pain, loneliness, and the desire to be useful again. They were kindred spirits, both dismissed as worthless due to their age. The next morning brought fresh challenges. Dr. Elias Crow, the town veterinarian, arrived to examine Silas's ailing livestock. He was a sharp-eyed man who prided himself on scientific precision. His examination revealed several serious problems that threatened the ranch's survival. Adelaide watched from the house as Dr. Crow delivered his grim diagnosis. Without proper treatment, Silas would lose most of his herd within months. The financial implications were devastating. A failed ranch meant no income, no future, and certainly no place for an unwanted wife. Constance Harwick arrived that afternoon with several other town women. They had come to inspect Adelaide under the pretense of offering welcome gifts. Their true purpose became clear quickly. They questioned her background, her intentions, and her suitability as a rancher's wife with barely concealed hostility. Adelaide maintained her composure while they catalogued her deficiencies. She was too old to bear children, too educated for her station, too different to fit their community standards. Constance made their position clear without stating it directly. Adelaide would never be accepted, and Silas would eventually realize his mistake. After the women left, Adelaide returned to the cow's enclosure. The animal seemed to sense her distress and approached the fence again. Adelaide reached out to stroke the cow's neck, feeling an immediate sense of calm. In that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. Adelaide woke before dawn with unusual clarity. The old dairy cow had somehow communicated something profound the night before. She dressed quietly and slipped outside to the animal enclosures. The cow, whom she decided to call Clover, waited by the fence as if expecting her. Adelaide studied the animal's posture and expressions with newfound attention. Clover's ears twitched in specific patterns. Her tail movements seemed deliberate rather than random. Her eyes held an intelligence that most people missed entirely. Adelaide reached through the fence rails to touch Clover's forehead. The cow leaned into the contact and made soft sounds that felt like conversation. For the first time since arriving in Copper Ridge, Adelaide felt truly understood. A commotion near the main barn drew her attention. One of Silas's horses was down, thrashing weakly in obvious distress. Silas emerged from the house, still pulling on his boots. His face showed the worry of a man watching his livelihood slip away. Dr. Crow had said the horse would likely die within days. The animal's labored breathing and glazed eyes seemed to confirm that diagnosis. But Adelaide saw something different. She approached the suffering horse slowly, extending her hand palm down. The horse's ears flickered toward her voice as she spoke in low, soothing tones. Adelaide had learned this technique from her father decades ago. Animals responded to calm confidence and genuine intention. She placed her hand on the horse's neck and felt his rapid pulse gradually slow. Moving with instinctive knowledge, Adelaide examined the horse's legs and belly. She found a swollen area Dr. Crow had missed during his hurried examination. The horse flinched when she touched it, confirming her suspicion. This was treatable with proper care and attention. Adelaide spent the morning tending to the horse using methods her father had taught her. She prepared herbal poultices from plants growing wild around the ranch. She adjusted his position to relieve pressure on the affected area. Most importantly, she stayed with him, providing the calm presence that helped animals heal. By afternoon, the horse was standing and drinking water. Silas stared in amazement at the transformation. He peppered Adelaide with questions about her methods, but she deflected them carefully. People rarely understood her approach to animal care. Clover watched from her enclosure as Adelaide worked with other struggling livestock. The cow seemed to nod approvingly when Adelaide successfully treated a calf with digestive problems. Their wordless communication grew stronger throughout the day. News of the horse's recovery spread quickly through the small community. Neighbors began arriving under various pretenses, hoping to witness Adelaide's methods firsthand. She helped a rancher locate his missing cattle by reading tracks and behavioral signs most people ignored. She diagnosed a milk cow's illness by observing subtle changes in the animal's stance and expression. Each success deepened the mystery surrounding Adelaide's abilities. Dr. Crow arrived unannounced one evening, ostensibly to check on the recovered horse. His real purpose was investigating Adelaide's techniques. He questioned her extensively about her background and training. Adelaide revealed only fragments of the truth. She had learned animal husbandry from her father back east. She possessed natural intuition about livestock behavior. She preferred observation to aggressive medical intervention. Dr. Crow accepted these explanations reluctantly, but his suspicion remained evident. Constance Harwick organized a more direct challenge. She convinced several ranchers to test Adelaide's abilities publicly. If Adelaide failed, the community would have grounds to question her methods and motives. If she succeeded too dramatically, they might have different concerns entirely. The test involved a bull that had become increasingly aggressive and unmanageable. 3 different handlers had failed to calm the animal safely. Dr. Crow declared the bull dangerous and recommended immediate slaughter. The rancher agreed to let Adelaide try as a final option. Adelaide entered the bull's pen while a crowd gathered outside the fence. The massive animal pawed the ground and snorted warnings. His eyes rolled white with agitation and fear. Most people saw only dangerous unpredictability, but Adelaide recognized pain beneath the aggression. She stood perfectly still, allowing the bull to approach on his terms. Her breathing remained deep and steady. She avoided direct eye contact while projecting calm authority. The bull circled her warily, testing her resolve and intentions. Gradually, Adelaide began moving with deliberate slowness. She examined the bull's legs and hooves without touching him initially. She identified the problem quickly. A sharp stone had lodged between his toes, causing constant pain that manifested as aggression. Removing the stone required the bull's complete cooperation. Adelaide spoke to him continuously in low, reassuring tones. She explained each movement before making it. The bull seemed to understand her intentions and stood remarkably still during the delicate procedure. When Adelaide extracted the bloody stone, the bull's entire demeanor changed instantly. His aggression disappeared, replaced by grateful docility. He nuzzled Adelaide's shoulder gently before walking calmly to the water trough. The crowd outside the fence stood in stunned silence. They had witnessed something that challenged their understanding of both animals and human capability. Dr. Crow scribbled notes frantically, trying to document what had occurred through scientific observation. Clover watched from across the yard with unmistakable pride. Adelaide caught the cow's eye and smiled slightly. They shared a secret that went deeper than words or explanation. Both had found their purpose in this harsh landscape. That evening, neighboring ranchers approached Silas discreetly. They wanted Adelaide's help with their livestock problems but preferred to keep their requests private. The same people who had scorned her publicly now sought her expertise secretly. Adelaide accepted their requests selectively, helping animals that truly needed attention while building her reputation carefully. Each success strengthened her position in the community and her confidence in abilities she had suppressed for too long. Dr. Crow increased his surveillance, convinced that Adelaide possessed knowledge or techniques beyond normal experience. His scientific mind struggled to categorize her methods within accepted veterinary practice. Something about her background did not match her claimed simple upbringing. The drought arrived like a slow-moving curse, withering the grasslands and dropping water levels daily. Cattle began dying across the territory as ranchers watched their livelihoods evaporate under the merciless sun. Desperation settled over Copper Ridge like dust on everything it touched. Constance Harwick seized the moment to consolidate opposition against Adelaide. She organized emergency town meetings, where she blamed the newcomer for bringing bad fortune to their previously peaceful community. Superstition ran deeper than logic in times of crisis. Dr. Crow's investigation had intensified over the past weeks. He followed Adelaide secretly, documented her methods, and questioned anyone who had witnessed her work with animals. His scientific mind rejected supernatural explanations, but he struggled to categorize her abilities within accepted veterinary knowledge. The veterinarian had discovered inconsistencies in Adelaide's story about her background. Her knowledge of animal anatomy exceeded what any farmer's daughter should possess. Her diagnostic techniques demonstrated formal training she claimed never to have received. Something significant was being concealed. Silas found himself caught between loyalty to his wife and pressure from his community. His ranch thrived while his neighbors suffered devastating losses. Adelaide's interventions had saved his livestock repeatedly, but explaining her success without revealing her methods became increasingly difficult. The town council called an emergency meeting to address what Constance termed the unnatural influences plaguing their community. She had convinced enough people that Adelaide's presence coincided suspiciously with their recent troubles. Fear made people search for scapegoats rather than solutions. Adelaide knew the meeting would determine her fate. She could remain silent and face banishment, or reveal abilities that might be interpreted as witchcraft. Neither option guaranteed safety, but one might save the animals and people she had grown to care about. Clover sensed Adelaide's distress and stayed close to the fence separating them. The old cow had become Adelaide's anchor during the mounting hostility. Their bond represented something pure in a world increasingly poisoned by suspicion and desperation. The night before the town meeting, Adelaide sat beside Clover's enclosure and made a decision that terrified her. She would tell the truth about her background, regardless of consequences. The community deserved honesty, even if they rejected both the truth and her. Thunder rumbled ominously as townspeople gathered in the schoolhouse for the emergency meeting. The air felt heavy with more than impending rain. Decades of buried prejudices and fears surfaced in whispered conversations and hostile glances directed at Adelaide. Constance opened the meeting by cataloging the community's recent misfortunes. Crop failures, livestock deaths, and now drought had struck since Adelaide's arrival. She stopped short of direct accusations, but implied connections that satisfied those seeking simple explanations for complex problems. Dr. Crow rose to present his findings about Adelaide's suspicious knowledge and methods. He had prepared a detailed report questioning her claimed background and suggesting she practiced techniques beyond normal understanding. His scientific reputation lent weight to implications of deception or worse. Adelaide listened quietly as speaker after speaker voiced concerns about her presence in their community. Some demands were explicit, others remained diplomatically vague. All pointed toward the same conclusion: she must leave Copper Ridge immediately. Silas defended his wife as best he could, but his voice carried little authority against the collective fear and anger filling the room. He cited her contributions to his ranch's success, but neighbors dismissed his testimony as biased and possibly compromised by unnatural influence. Rain began pattering against the schoolhouse windows as tensions reached their peak. The sound initially brought hope for drought relief, but quickly intensified into something more alarming. Heavy raindrops became a steady drumming that made conversation difficult. A child burst through the schoolhouse door with terrifying news. Flash flooding threatened the main cattle herd gathered near the river bottom. The sudden deluge was turning the drought-parched ground into rushing torrents that could sweep away livestock and destroy what remained of the community's economic foundation. Panic replaced deliberation as ranchers faced immediate catastrophe. Years of careful breeding and investment stood in mortal danger. The meeting dissolved into chaos as men rushed outside to assess the crisis and attempt desperate rescue efforts. Adelaide followed the crowd into the storm. Rain soaked through her dress within seconds, but her focus locked onto the distant sounds of terrified cattle. Hundreds of animals were trapped between rising water and steep canyon walls with no clear escape route. Dr. Crow shouted above the storm that Adelaide must confess her true methods immediately. If she possessed genuine ability to help animals, this crisis demanded its use regardless of personal consequences. His desperation overwhelmed his previous suspicion. Adelaide made her choice in that moment. She whistled sharply, a sound that carried despite the howling wind. Clover answered from the nearby ranch, her distinctive call piercing through the chaos. Other cattle responded to the familiar sound, their panic momentarily subdued. Moving with sudden authority, Adelaide began organizing the rescue using knowledge she had hidden since childhood. She directed men to positions that would channel the herd rather than scatter them. She used vocal commands and hand signals that seemed to communicate directly with the frightened animals. Clover appeared through the storm as if summoned, leading several ranch horses toward the crisis site. The old cow moved with purpose and intelligence that shocked the watching townspeople. She positioned herself at a crucial point where her presence could guide the trapped cattle toward safety. Adelaide revealed her secret in that moment of desperate need. She was the daughter of Dr. Jonathan Mosley, renowned animal behaviorist from Boston. Her knowledge came from years of scientific study and practical application under one of the country's leading experts in livestock psychology and management. The dramatic rescue unfolded as Adelaide applied her father's revolutionary techniques to save the community's economic foundation. Man and animal worked together under her guidance, turning potential disaster into demonstration of what human understanding could accomplish when fear gave way to knowledge. The storm cleared as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving the rescued cattle safely gathered on higher ground. Adelaide stood soaked and exhausted while the community processed what they had witnessed. Her revelation hung in the air like morning mist, changing everything they thought they knew about her. Dr. Crow approached first, his medical bag clutched tightly against his chest. His face showed a mixture of embarrassment and wonder. He had spent weeks investigating Adelaide for witchcraft when she possessed legitimate scientific credentials that surpassed his own training. The veterinarian's voice cracked as he apologized publicly for his suspicions and accusations. He had researched Dr. Jonathan Mosley's work extensively during his medical studies. The man's contributions to animal behavior and veterinary science were legendary throughout academic circles. Adelaide accepted his apology with quiet dignity. She explained how her father had trained her from childhood in observation techniques and diagnostic methods that wouldn't be widely adopted for decades. His progressive approach to animal psychology had made him both celebrated and controversial in Boston's medical community. The townspeople gathered closer as Dr. Crow retrieved a worn journal from his bag. He had carried Dr. Mosley's published research for years, using it as reference for difficult cases. The irony of investigating the great man's daughter for fraudulent practices was not lost on anyone present. Reading aloud from the journal, Dr. Crow described revolutionary techniques for understanding animal communication through body language, vocal patterns, and behavioral observation. Adelaide had demonstrated every method perfectly during her time in Copper Ridge, but her mixed heritage had prevented people from recognizing her expertise. Constance Harwick stood frozen as the implications settled over her. She had orchestrated a campaign to banish one of the most qualified animal specialists in the Western Territories. Her prejudice had nearly cost the community access to knowledge that could transform their agricultural practices. Several ranchers who had secretly sought Adelaide's help now spoke openly about her successes with their livestock. Stories emerged of accurate diagnoses, effective treatments, and insights that had saved valuable animals from certain death. Her track record was flawless when examined honestly. Silas's pride in his wife became evident as neighbors finally understood what he had recognized from the beginning. Adelaide possessed rare combinations of formal education, practical experience, and natural intuition that made her invaluable to any agricultural community willing to accept her guidance. The rescued cattle served as living proof of Adelaide's abilities. Clover had played a crucial role in the rescue, demonstrating intelligence and training that contradicted assumptions about animal capabilities. The old cow had become living evidence of advanced animal behavior techniques. Dr. Crow requested permission to become Adelaide's student. His formal veterinary training provided a solid foundation, but her father's methods offered revolutionary improvements to traditional animal care. He recognized an opportunity to advance his own knowledge significantly. Adelaide agreed to share her father's techniques with anyone genuinely interested in learning. She had suppressed her abilities for too long out of fear and social pressure. The successful rescue proved that knowledge should serve the community rather than remain hidden due to prejudice. Word of the dramatic rescue spread quickly beyond Copper Ridge. Neighboring communities sent representatives to inquire about Adelaide's availability for consultation. The drought had created widespread livestock problems that conventional veterinary approaches couldn't solve effectively. Adelaide found herself overwhelmed by requests for assistance. Ranchers traveled days to seek her advice about sick animals, breeding programs, and management techniques. Her reputation grew from suspected witch to recognized expert within a matter of weeks. The transformation in community attitudes toward Adelaide created ripple effects throughout local social structures. Women began questioning other assumptions about age, race, and capability. Some wondered what other talents they had dismissed due to superficial judgments. Young people showed particular interest in Adelaide's methods. She began informal teaching sessions where children learned to observe animal behavior more carefully. Their natural curiosity and lack of ingrained prejudice made them excellent students. Constance Harwick faced social consequences for her campaign against Adelaide. Community members who had lost livestock due to delayed access to Adelaide's expertise questioned the matriarch's judgment and motivations. Her influence began declining as people recognized the cost of her prejudices. Dr. Crow proposed establishing a formal veterinary school in Copper Ridge, with Adelaide as the primary instructor. The drought had demonstrated how crucial proper animal care was to the territory's economic survival. Trained specialists could prevent future disasters. Adelaide considered the proposal carefully. Teaching would allow her to honor her father's legacy while helping develop the next generation of animal care specialists. The frontier needed people who understood both traditional methods and advanced scientific approaches. Clover's transformation paralleled Adelaide's own journey from rejection to respect. The old cow had proven her value during the rescue, and now received attention and care appropriate to her contributions. Age had become an asset rather than a liability. Silas supported his wife's growing prominence enthusiastically. Their marriage had strengthened as Adelaide's confidence returned, and her abilities gained recognition. He took pride in her achievements rather than feeling threatened by her success. The rescued cattle served as a constant reminder of what could be accomplished when knowledge overcame prejudice. Their survival had prevented economic disaster for multiple families and demonstrated the practical value of treating all community members with respect. Adelaide began documenting her father's techniques in detailed journals that could be shared with other practitioners. His work deserved wider distribution, and her practical applications provided valuable additions to his theoretical foundations. The community's acceptance of Adelaide opened possibilities that extended far beyond veterinary medicine. Her success challenged assumptions about who could contribute valuable knowledge and expertise to frontier society. Dr. Crow's enthusiasm for learning Adelaide's methods created an unlikely partnership between the formally educated veterinarian and the self-taught expert. Their collaboration combined different approaches to create more effective treatment protocols. Adelaide established her teaching program in the renovated schoolhouse 3 months after the flood rescue. Students traveled from across the territory to learn her father's revolutionary methods. Dr. Crow served as her assistant, documenting techniques while expanding his own understanding of animal behavior. The first formal classes attracted 12 ranchers, 4 veterinarians, and 6 young apprentices eager to master scientific approaches to livestock management. Adelaide structured the curriculum around observation skills, diagnostic procedures, and communication techniques that her father had developed decades earlier. Clover became the star of every demonstration. The old cow responded to Adelaide's subtle signals with remarkable precision, illustrating concepts that students found difficult to grasp through words alone. Her transformation from worthless animal to valuable teaching assistant inspired similar respect for other aging livestock. Sela's converted an unused barn into a proper clinic, where Adelaide could treat animals brought from surrounding communities. Word of her success had spread beyond Montana territory, attracting visitors from Colorado, Wyoming, and the Dakotas seeking solutions to problems conventional veterinary practice couldn't solve. The teaching program generated income that surprised everyone, including Adelaide herself. Ranchers paid substantial fees for knowledge that could save entire herds from disease or death. The economic benefits of proper animal care far exceeded the cost of education. Adelaide's success forced Constance Harwick to confront the consequences of her prejudice directly. Several families had lost significant livestock due to delayed access to Adelaide's expertise. They held the former matriarch responsible for perpetuating attitudes that had nearly cost the community its greatest asset. The social dynamics of Copper Ridge shifted fundamentally as Adelaide's influence grew. Women gained more respect for their opinions and contributions. Older residents found their experience valued rather than dismissed. The success of one previously rejected individual changed expectations for everyone. Dr. Crow's collaboration with Adelaide produced the first comprehensive manual of advanced animal behavior techniques adapted for frontier conditions. Publishers in Denver and San Francisco competed for distribution rights to work that promised to revolutionize Western agriculture. Adelaide began receiving invitations to speak at agricultural conferences throughout the Western territories. Her presentations combined scientific rigor with practical applications that impressed academics and working ranchers equally. She had become the foremost authority on animal behavior west of the Mississippi River. Young people flocked to Adelaide's informal evening sessions, where she shared stories about her father's research and her own discoveries. These gatherings created a new generation of animal care specialists who viewed science and compassion as complementary rather than conflicting approaches. The veterinary school proposal gained support from territorial officials who recognized the economic benefits of improved livestock management. They offered funding for a permanent facility that could serve the entire region's educational needs, while establishing Montana Territory as a leader in agricultural innovation. Adelaide's marriage with Sela's had evolved into a true partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. He managed the business aspects of her growing enterprises, while she focused on teaching and research. Their success demonstrated what couples could accomplish when they supported each other's strengths. Clover's health had improved dramatically under Adelaide's specialized care. The old cow's renewed vitality became living proof that age didn't automatically mean uselessness. Her presence at every teaching session reminded students that potential could be found in the most unlikely places. Neighboring communities began requesting Adelaide's consultation on agricultural planning and development projects. Her understanding of animal behavior extended naturally to broader questions about sustainable farming practices and resource management. Her influence expanded beyond veterinary medicine into regional development. The transformation of Copper Ridge attracted new residents who valued knowledge and diversity over conformity and tradition. The town's population grew as progressive families sought communities where merit mattered more than background or appearance. Economic prosperity followed intellectual openness. Adelaide's success inspired other women to pursue education and professional development previously considered inappropriate. 3 ranchers' daughters enrolled in her veterinary program, challenging assumptions about suitable careers for frontier women. Change accelerated once barriers began falling. Dr. Crow's research partnership with Adelaide led to breakthrough discoveries about animal communication patterns. Their joint publications gained attention from Eastern universities seeking to understand how frontier conditions fostered innovation. Academic recognition followed practical success. The teaching program's reputation attracted students from unexpected backgrounds. Native American healers sought to combine traditional knowledge with Adelaide's scientific methods. Mexican vaqueros brought generations of livestock expertise to exchange with her systematic approaches. Cultural barriers dissolved around shared interests. Adelaide began planning an expansion of her educational programs to include correspondence courses for ranchers unable to travel to Copper Ridge. Her father's techniques could benefit thousands of farmers across the Western Territories if properly documented and distributed through accessible formats. Constance Harwick's diminished influence reflected broader changes in community values. Leadership positions gradually shifted to people who demonstrated competence rather than simply maintaining tradition. Merit-based recognition replaced social hierarchy based on background and appearance. The clinic's success enabled Adelaide to fund research into animal diseases specific to frontier conditions. Her systematic approach to identifying causes and developing treatments saved countless livestock while advancing veterinary science. Practical applications validated theoretical knowledge. Adelaide's evening sessions evolved into community forums where residents discussed agricultural innovations and shared successful techniques. Knowledge flowed freely among people who had previously maintained strict social divisions. Cooperation replaced competition as the foundation for progress. Clover's role in the teaching program had expanded beyond simple demonstrations. Adelaide used the cow's responses to illustrate complex concepts about animal intelligence and emotional capacity. Students learned to see livestock as individuals rather than mere economic resources. The veterinary school construction began that autumn, funded by territorial appropriations and private donations from grateful ranchers. Adelaide would serve as the founding director, establishing curriculum standards that would influence animal care education throughout the American West. Silas took pride in his wife's achievements while managing their expanded operations efficiently. His support had been crucial during her struggles for acceptance, and his continued encouragement enabled her to reach potential that prejudice had nearly prevented her from achieving. 1 year later, the first annual Animal Husbandry Conference transformed Copper Ridge into the educational center of the Montana Territory. Adelaide stood before an audience of 200 ranchers, veterinarians, and agricultural officials who had traveled from across the American West to learn her father's revolutionary methods. Clover waited patiently beside the speaking platform, wearing a blue ribbon that declared her the conference's official demonstration animal. The old cow's remarkable recovery and intelligence had become legendary throughout the territory. She represented the conference's central message that potential existed in the most unexpected places. Adelaide addressed the crowd as Professor Mosley, a title that reflected both her inherited expertise and earned respect. Her presentation outlined systematic approaches to animal behavior that could prevent disease, improve breeding programs, and increase agricultural productivity throughout the Western territories. The audience included former skeptics who now sought her guidance eagerly. Ranchers who had once dismissed her due to age and race now competed for consultation appointments. Her knowledge had proven more valuable than their prejudices, forcing fundamental changes in how they evaluated expertise. Dr. Crow introduced research findings from their collaborative studies of frontier animal diseases. Their partnership had produced breakthrough treatments that saved thousands of livestock, while establishing scientific methods for addressing agricultural challenges unique to Western conditions. The veterinary school building stood completed behind the conference grounds, ready to welcome its first class of 30 students. Adelaide had designed the curriculum to combine her father's theoretical insights with practical applications developed through years of frontier experience. The institution would serve the entire Western region. Territorial Governor Samuel Crawford delivered the conference's keynote address, praising Adelaide's contributions to Montana's economic development. Her work had prevented livestock losses worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, while establishing the territory as a leader in agricultural innovation and education. Adelaide's teaching methods had influenced agricultural practices throughout neighboring territories. Her correspondence courses reached ranchers in remote areas who couldn't attend formal classes. Knowledge that had once been confined to Eastern universities now served practical needs across the frontier. The conference featured demonstrations by Adelaide's first graduating students, including 3 women who had overcome significant social barriers to pursue veterinary education. Their success inspired other women to challenge traditional limitations, while proving that competence mattered more than gender in practical applications. Clover participated in every demonstration with remarkable patience and intelligence. The old cow had become a symbol of the conference's central theme, about recognizing value regardless of age or appearance. Her transformation from rejected animal to teaching assistant illustrated principles that extended beyond veterinary medicine. Adelaide's marriage with Silas had become a model for partnerships based on mutual support and shared goals. He managed the business aspects of their expanding educational enterprise, while she focused on research and instruction. Their success demonstrated what couples could accomplish through cooperation rather than traditional hierarchy. The afternoon sessions included presentations by Native American healers and Mexican vaqueros who had integrated Adelaide's systematic methods with traditional practices. Cultural exchange had enriched everyone's understanding while breaking down barriers that had previously divided frontier communities. Adelaide announced plans for a second veterinary school in Colorado Territory, responding to demand from regions unable to send students to Montana. Her educational network would eventually serve the entire American West, ensuring that advanced animal care knowledge reached every farming community. The conference's economic impact on Copper Ridge exceeded all expectations. Hotels were booked solid, restaurants served capacity crowds, and local merchants reported record sales. Adelaide's success had transformed a struggling frontier town into a prosperous educational center that attracted visitors year-round. Constance Harwick attended the conference quietly, her former opposition to Adelaide replaced by grudging respect. The community's prosperity directly resulted from embracing the knowledge she had tried to reject. Her influence had never recovered from the consequences of her prejudiced judgment. Dr. Crow presented Adelaide with a leather-bound volume containing her father's complete research notes, recovered from Boston archives, and compiled into a comprehensive reference work. The publication would preserve Dr. Jonathan Moseley's contributions while extending his legacy through his daughter's practical applications. The late afternoon stagecoach brought new arrivals to Copper Ridge, including another mail-order bride who stepped uncertainly into the bustling conference crowd. Adelaide noticed the young woman's nervous expression and remembered her own arrival just 2 years earlier. Adelaide approached the newcomer with genuine warmth, offering assistance and reassurance. She shared wisdom gained through experience about finding one's place in frontier communities, while encouraging the young woman to pursue her own dreams regardless of others' expectations. Silas joined the conversation, adding his perspective about the importance of judging people by their character rather than their appearance. His gentle manner and obvious respect for his wife provided the young woman with an example of what marriage could become when based on mutual appreciation. The newcomer expressed amazement at the transformation of what she had expected to be a typical rough frontier town. Adelaide explained that communities could change when residents chose knowledge over ignorance and inclusion over prejudice. Progress required courage but delivered remarkable rewards. Clover wandered over to investigate the new arrival, offering the same gentle welcome that had comforted Adelaide during her darkest moments. The cow's presence reminded everyone that acceptance and understanding could come from unexpected sources when hearts remained open to possibility. Adelaide reflected on her journey from rejected mail-order bride to respected educator and community leader. Her father's legacy lived on through students who would carry advanced animal care techniques throughout the developing West. Knowledge had triumphed over prejudice through persistence and practical demonstration. The conference concluded with participants committing to maintain networks of communication and cooperation that would advance agricultural science across territorial boundaries. Adelaide's influence had created lasting changes that extended far beyond individual success to regional transformation. As evening approached, Adelaide stood beside Clover watching the sunset over the prosperous town that had initially rejected them both. Age had proven to be an asset rather than liability. Wisdom accumulated through experience had value that youth alone could never provide. The old cow looked at her companion with knowing eyes that seemed to say what Adelaide had learned through struggle and triumph. Every individual possessed unique worth waiting for recognition. Sometimes the most unlikely partnerships created the most remarkable transformations.